Coming up, Bin Laden sets Twitter records without fail whales. You can keep Relationship George away from Independent George on Facebook, and you'll like Facebook so much more. Is Clubby Foursquare voyeur service Nock Nock cool or just creepy? All that plus rants, public rants, on this episode of The Social Hour.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for the Social Hour is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is The Social Hour, Episode 6, with Sarah Laden and guest host Tom Merritt. Recorded Monday, May 2nd, 2011. This episode of The Social Hour is brought to you by Carbonite. Backing up the files on your PC or Mac is safe and easy with Carbonite. For a free trial plus 2 free months with purchase, go to Carbonite.com, offer code SOCIALHOUR. And by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies streamed to your PC, Mac, or TV instantly. Plus get DVDs by mail in about 1 business day. For your free 30-day trial, go to Netflix.com/twit. Welcome to Episode 6 of The Social Hour in Petaluma, California. I'm Sarah Lane.
In San Rafael, California, I'm Tom Merritt.
Where in the world is San Rafael, Tom?
Well, it's about 20 minutes south of Petaluma.
Yeah?
Yeah. I only drove down here so I'd be able to say a different town when we introduce ourselves.
I'm glad, Tom. It's funny. I'm still getting used to running the board. So when you're sitting in Leo's seat, or Jason's seat, if you're watching TNT, you've got a clear view of this door into the kitchen. And whenever the door opens, you know, it's like the door's opening.
Is that thing spooking you again?
Well, actually, this time it was actually a person trying to tell me something. And it's like, I don't know. I'm wearing headphones. All I can hear is Tom. But anyway.
Yeah, I know. I like it when people come up and just start talking to you when you have the headphones on. You're like, I can't hear a word you're saying.
It's really funny. It's like whenever I play Leo, I realize how hard it is to play Leo. And I appreciate him more every day. So thanks so much for filling in for Amber on The Social Hour this week. For anyone who's wondering what is going on, Amber is ill. She has come down with a work too hard type of a flu because she works really hard. She's always flying here or there, and so she's stuck in Atlanta or Salt Lake City, or I can't even keep track anymore. But Tom graciously agreed to fill in. And
I feel so bad for her. She's traveling and sick. That's the worst.
I know. Well, you know, this all started because Amber and her family went down to Florida, where they've got a summer house or something really nice, just to get a little R&R. And she was working. She did the show last week from a cafe where the Wi-Fi was bad, and we were doing the show, and it's like, oh, man, I wouldn't want to do that when I was on vacation, but she's a real trooper, so we hope she gets better soon. In the meantime, there's a lot of social network stuff to talk about, Tom, because, as you may recall, last night, Twitter made some records. In fact, the Bin Laden news generated the highest amount of sustained tweets ever. So there was actually a point, I think it was New Year's Eve, when New Year's Eve hit in Japan, which was actually the biggest barrage of tweets at a single point ever. But this was the biggest amount of sustained tweets. So at 11 p.m. Eastern, just before Obama spoke, users generated a little over 5,100 tweets per second. Highest single volume of tweets during the night. 11:45 p.m., that was post-speech. Twitter users were sending just over 5,000 tweets per second, so still really high. Twitter said in an official announcement last night, we saw the highest sustained rate of tweets ever from 10:45 to 2:20 a.m. Eastern. There was an average of 3,000 tweets per second. That equates to 27,900,000 tweets in just over 2.5 hours. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, this is you'll see some stories out there that are like not the most tweets ever, you know, and you may be wondering, well, wait a minute, you're telling me it's the most tweets ever. It's the most sustained tweets.
Yeah.
So it's other, as Sarah just pointed out, other points in time have had more tweets spike at a particular point, but this was just people were sitting down and watching Twitter. I was watching Twitter to get news, and then talking to each other and retweeting and it really, you know, people were riveted to the coverage and what was going on.
Yeah, they absolutely were. It was amazing. It was amazing. We talked about this a little bit on Tech News Today, obviously, because the Bin Laden news itself, as it relates to the way that we all absorbed it and passed it along, was obviously big tech news. But it was very interesting for me to learn of this impending speech by the United States president over Twitter. There was a time of speculation and some jokes before some of the news outlets they decided it's time to leak what they believed was true, that Bin Laden had been killed, and that's what the news was going to be about. And, I know Darren Kitchen told the story. He was at dinner. It's funny. When he told the story on TNT, for anybody who didn't see today's show, he was like, yeah, I was at dinner. And, of course, nobody was on Twitter because you're not supposed to read Twitter at dinner. And I thought, I should hang out with Darren and his friends more often because my friends read Twitter during dinner, and it's totally cool.
Oh, man. When I go to dinner, me and Eileen are like this. We're just like head in the phone. Like, oh, this is funny. Check this out. Okay. It's just and a lot of people look at us like those crazy, awful people. They're so sad, but we actually share stuff with each other. It's no different than somebody sitting at the table reading the newspaper, at brunch or something.
Yeah, it's totally true. It was, in a way, it was exciting. These sorts of events tend to, everyone who's on Twitter, who's in the know, it's kind of, it does generate some sort of buzz and excitement. And I don't want to say excitement like, positive excitement. I don't want to make it seem like everyone was like, this is the greatest thing ever, because obviously.
Although some people were.
Some people were. I would say I just don't want to, I think that there were many mixed emotions based on the event itself, and a lot of people decided to handle the news in the way that they decided to handle it. There was partying in the streets, there was quiet reflectiveness, so nobody's right or wrong. I think that there was just a wide range of emotions, but there certainly was a lot of volume of tweets. There's actually, Tom, I don't know if you were aware that Twitter has been working on a feature that Facebook actually does pretty well, where in your Facebook news feed right now, if you get a lot of people who send their Twitter stream to their Facebook page or Facebook profiles, and you get a bunch of them at one time, Facebook will collapse those, give you a tweet, and then you have the option you can click on see 40 more stories like this, which were all other Twitter-generated Facebook messages. Twitter's actually working on the same thing, and Amber and I keep waiting to talk about the story because some folks say that they've been able to use this. Here's actually an article from the Next Web that talks a little bit about it, and you can see, anybody who's watching the video stream here, it's if you were following the Next Web, and they're tweeting very frequently, and maybe they're over tweeting, and it turns into the kind of account where you're like, oh gosh, I really like what this person has to say, what this company has to say, but they sure tweet a lot. The whole collapsing multiple tweets at once will sort of help that barrage and help keep your stream cleaned up. That was something that last night, as some of the tweets came in, especially because I felt that there were some less than tasteful jokes going on, and people were kind of getting on a roll about it, I would have maybe appreciated a feature like this. What do you you're not able to see this in your tweet stream, are you, Tom?
I have never seen this little show all thing, but to me, this is not what I want first.
No?
This looks like some kind of algorithmic thing where the Next Web, post 5 things in a row, and so I'm going to collapse them so you don't see them cluttering. That's not what I want. What I want is a mute button. I want to say, so-and-so's at a conference. I'm not interested in that conference, but I'm normally interested in what this person says, so I want to hide them temporarily while they're at the conference and then bring them back later on, be able to just kind of go and unmute them. And so when I first saw this article, I thought, oh, cool, we're finally going to get that. And they're just calling it hide. So I can hide somebody for a while and then bring them back. But what this does is this takes over my timeline and takes control away from me of how it works. It says, we're not going to show you everything you subscribe to. If we think there are too many of them, you're going to have to click a second button to show all. Well, what if that's not what I want? What if I'm doing a news list and I only have 2 or 3 sources and I want to see all of those posts at the same time? And I don't know that I like this idea.
Well, it's interesting that some people have been able to test it out. Twitter's clearly not ready to roll it out completely, because if they were, we'd be seeing it. I've never seen this feature. I don't know who's getting it versus who isn't. But it's just, it's it's a test group, and some folks have been saying that they've had this capability since January. So I don't know if they're adding people or what the deal is, but I would assume that you would be able to toggle this on and off. But then again, at one point, remember when everyone got all up in arms about how you would, when at replies started to get too confusing, when too many people started using Twitter, they hid at replies by default for anybody that both of us, if I at replied to somebody that you weren't following, you wouldn't see that unless you went to my profile. And everybody got upset about that because it's like, you're taking the control away from us. We didn't ask for this. Now I can't imagine going back to that world. It would be a very noisy world indeed. So.
But then what happened is you get all these people doing a dot before they reply. And I was one of the people who had chosen the select button that's like, don't show me replies to people I don't follow. And all of a sudden now I'm getting my timeline cluttered up by all these people putting a dot before they add and just messing with it. Just leave people in control of what they can do with their account. And so I hope you're right. I hope if they do roll this out, there's ability for me to go into my settings and say, use the hide factor or not, or maybe even by account. If there's an account that I know is victim to this a lot, I'll go in and say, okay, take this person and hide them when possible, but don't hide this news organization because I want to see all their stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So when we were on TNT earlier, it's funny. I have to keep saying that because it's like I just did that show, so it's some of.
We don't have to. It's not like anybody watches both shows.
No. Why would they? It's too much of me and you. Let's be honest. But on TNT, one of the biggest side stories to come out of the Bin Laden news, maybe the biggest, is a little Twitter account that went by the name of @reallyvirtual. His real name is Sohaib Athar. Lives in Abbottabad, which of course where Bin Laden was hiding, and uses Twitter.
People keep calling it the Bin Laden mansion. Did you finally see a picture of it?
Oh, I saw a picture. Yeah. Well, there were some pictures of the compound on fire on television last night.
Mansion is a misleading word. It makes it sound like it's the freaking Taj Mahal with marble columns. Yeah. This was a complex at best, and a complex in the manner of Waco. And probably, I think those are sort of equivalent in many ways. This was kind of shoddy looking, huge, massive for sure, but this was not luxury, especially the pictures of the inside.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's almost, compound is a good word to describe it. Larger than the average house, perhaps. I think mansion is a way. I don't really know why that word got used, but it is misleading because it makes it sound like he was, silver spoons and grapes.
They were
mouths.
freaking burning their trash.
Yeah, which is actually not uncommon in certain countries. That's people do is instead of, taking it to a landfill somewhere if they don't have transportation. But anyway, so many people know the story, but if for any reason you missed this, he was a Twitter user who was just happened to be living in the area. He's got kind of an interesting story because he lives in Abbottabad, but he used to live in Lahore, which is a much bigger city. And before I get into what his history is, we'll just go to his profile. The idea is that the other night when all of this was going down, the U.S., the Navy SEALs are going in to get Osama, almost said Obama, gosh, and he's noticing a helicopter, and he's kind of annoyed by it. He's tweeted quite a bit more because he's become a celebrity, but he's annoyed. He's wondering why there's a helicopter. He says it's 1 a.m. That's really unusual. It's a quiet town. Things like that don't happen around here. And then he kind of starts to speculate, well, the Pakistan government says it's not one of ours, and it doesn't look like Taliban would have a helicopter. I wonder what's going on. Eventually he realizes, oh my gosh, I'm the guy who just live tweeted them going in and getting Osama. Well, I'm not exactly sure how he got on the Twitter radar initially. Tom, I don't know if you knew that or not. eventually I just started seeing all these tweets. Oh my gosh, this guy live tweeted that, you got to look at this guy's Twitter stream. It's amazing.
I think what happened is people started to search for the Abbottabad tag, which he actually mentions at one point. He's like, well, got to turn off the alerts, because I guess he had an alert coming every time someone posted something with Abbottabad. And after last night, the freaking entire world was posting things about Abbottabad.
That makes sense.
So I imagine that people were probably starting to search for that. They ran across him. I heard about him shortly after the president's speech, when I believe Andy Carvin, who does Twitter coverage for NPR, had retweeted something that he had posted. I think when he posted, looks like I'm the guy who accidentally live blogged the Osama takedown. It was retweeted within minutes of that. So I think Carvin probably found it, somebody forwarded it to him, and then he posted it. And so I immediately went back and read through his Twitter stream. And at the time, all the times matched up. I mean, it seemed like this guy really was just like, what the crap is going on with all these helicopters? And something exploded. Now the power's out. Great.
Yeah.
And he's probably just on his phone tapping this stuff out. And then later, the news breaks, and he realizes, oh, that's what the helicopters were about. And of course, immediately everyone catches on to that because of what he wrote. He wrote, I'm the guy who accidentally live blogged and
right.
That resonated with me too. I'm like, holy cow, how crazy is that? And it just, I'm 87% certain that this is absolutely true. And we saw on the Al Jazeera show, The Stream, earlier today, an interview with him, and he was at his coffee shop, which if you read back farther in his stream, he talks about his coffee shop that he set up there. So, I think the whole thing's true. And now the poor guy's flooded with media requests and people following him on Twitter and replying him. And all because he was upset that the helicopters were loud over his house.
Yeah, exactly. When I checked his account, this was, maybe around 11, maybe a little bit later. I was up pretty late digesting all of this last night. At any point, once I wasn't the first person to realize who he was, he had just under 1,000 followers. I thought, oh yeah, he's getting some attention now. He now has 82,000 followers and growing. I mean, if you refresh his Twitter page every 5 minutes, it jumps up like 500 people. So instant celebrity. It's kind of amazing. Obviously, this is a big event, but he wasn't the only person to be tweeting about the news or to be wondering. I mean, there was somebody who had written into TNT who had compiled a few tweets from the area that showed that people were kind of chattering about this event, what happened, what might be going on. But our buddy, Really Virtual, is a bit of an internet celebrity. And when you read his tweets now, he's kind of funny, actually. He's got kind of a sense of humor, He's talking about, he's making jokes about sponsored messages and then saying, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. He's got a lot of people retweeting him. He's clearly got a life there. He lives there by choice. He did mention to the folks on the stream, which is Al Jazeera English podcast, which I believe they're going to take onto television, but it's a new podcast that they're doing. And it's good get on their part for getting so high up on the show. He said that Abbottabad is a really quiet place. At 1 a.m., not a lot of activity. Most people are asleep. It's not the kind of place where a lot of people would be up and paying attention. He says, he told them, since he is originally from Lahore, he's actually been in situations where he's heard sound, gunshots, warfare, that sort of thing. And he knew something was up just based on his experience. In his opinion, most people would be like, wow, that was kind of some weird noises, and go back to sleep and not even think about it. So very interesting. It'll be interesting to see if he does do the media circuit. Is not something that he asked for. I mean, in no way was he trying to gain, the better part of 100,000 followers in 24 hours, but I bet he'll get there. I bet he'll get there by midnight. And what do? You're a coffee shop owner in Abbottabad. Maybe you'll get some more customers. Hard to say.
Yeah, I'm looking back at some of the posts that he made before the events of last night, and he does seem to have a sense of humor, and he seems to be pretty active in social stuff.
Yeah.
At one point, he writes, "One man's breakfast is another man's dinner," which is a tried, true, and eternal truth. He also is asking people in Lahore, where does one find imported shisha tobacco from brands other than Al Fakir? Please share. It just seems like it's not something I would ever think to ask because it's totally different culture, but it's that same sort of thing you see on Twitter all the time.
Totally.
Where can you find this thing I like that's not that thing that everybody knows about?
Right. Or
yeah,
hey, I'm in Chicago tonight. I want the best deep dish pizza. I've got 30 minutes. Go. It's all the same thing. He did mention there was one tweet where somebody had asked him, and this is before things happened, something about, why don't you ask Twitter? Or he was asking a question, and someone had suggested that he kind of crowdsource it, and he was like, nobody here is on Twitter. It would just be asking nobody. Well, I bet a lot of people in Abbottabad will be joining Twitter now, since they're obviously in the news. But anyway, it's an interesting accidental celebrity. Happens all the time. This was one of the stranger circumstances of it happening, but I wish him well, and I hope his phone stops ringing off the hook so he can get some sleep.
Yeah, seriously.
All right, Tom. So the next okay, so let me give you a little history. I had told a story sometime back about a bad experience I had with Verizon. Tom,
Abbottabad?
Yes. Haha. About a boy. No, not really. They're always about a boy somehow, but this particular story was more about me and a company. And you remember you were next to me where I was having a heated conversation with a customer service representative for Verizon.
Right. And then it was the Verizon people who picked you up, and then they're like, oh, wait, your problem's with Verizon Wireless. That's a whole different company. Yeah. We can't help you.
There was a long, drawn-out customer service, spent a lot of time. Won't go into the story again because folks have heard it already. But long story short, I lashed out on Twitter. A Verizon representative got back to me on Twitter publicly. We moved it to DM. She ended up calling me. I had asked for my number, which I provided, and we worked out the situation. I felt that I was in the right, so I wasn't just trying to, be a jerk.
Do you keep in touch with her?
No.
Okay.
Her phone number is in my call history, though. So if I need assistance, I will. I will not hesitate.
Yeah, I didn't know it like Easter if you just called her up to.
Yeah, I should have. I should have wished her happy Easter. That was rude. Well, anyway, we got mixed feedback from folks saying, "Hey, you have almost 50,000 followers. This is kind of a weird example because you're not necessarily the normal person. You work for a network that a lot of techie people watch. Verizon cares what you have to say more than the average person." And
right. In other words, you're going to get treatment the rest of the world won't.
Yeah, and
what they're trying to say.
I think that there is some truth to being able to speak more loudly if you have the right forum. But the way that I feel is that if this sets an example that you can use social media tools to fix issues, then everyone should know that they have these tools at their disposal. Obviously results will vary, as they always do with customer service experiences. But so in our inbox, John had forwarded along a recent rant that was really similar to mine. There's actually two rants. There's one rant from two TechCrunch reporters, Paul Carr, bitching about how the Luxor didn't give him free Wi-Fi. He's staying in Vegas. That was kind of it was in addition to another article from Eric Schoenfeld. The original article was, and Eric Schoenfeld, he's actually a really mild-mannered guy. He's not the kind of person to write rants. He wrote a rant on TechCrunch called "American Air, You Suck." And it was, if you read this, you really do feel bad for him. It's a terrible, sordid tale of canceled flights and screaming children and being stuck on the runway for 2 hours and then not having a seat. There was something wrong with his seat cushion, and then you can't just change seat cushions. And it was a really bad story, and he had difficulty with customer service, tried to get somebody to reimburse him and just, didn't have any luck, took his story to Twitter. And his story it turns out a lot like mine, where he finally got someone to say, okay, I see what's going on. I'm the American Air social media representative, whatever they call themselves. and he got his situation figured out. Paul Carr followed up to the story, just sort of, and the reason that Paul Carr, I think, followed up to the story is that if you read the comment section, which was actually, I mean, it was a pretty lively debate. In the original article about American Airlines, a lot of people were like, hey, listen, TechCrunch, you guys do too many of these types of things. This is a personal rant about a personal problem. This is a tech blog. We don't want to hear it. And by the way, you have too many followers to be complaining about this because none of us could do the same thing and get the same kind of treatment. Well, the second article that I keep referring to is just kind of, he sides with these people a bit, Paul does, because he says the truth is most of the time, social media experts, representatives, brand ambassadors, whatever they're calling themselves, really are just going to give you the runaround. What they want to do, they've got people looking at their at replies and following keywords, and when you complain about them, they might click on your profile and see if you matter enough. And if you don't, maybe you just never hear anything. And if you do, based on whatever their measurement terms are, they'll DM you and get you to start complaining out of the public realm. So you get it off of everybody else's Twitter streams. But then in many cases, that's as far as it's ever going to get, because they're not just going to make everybody's day, because, of course, that's how customer service works. Tom, what do you think about this? I mean, you and I are in very similar positions as far as what we do for a living, how we use social media, the reach, if you want to call it that we have online. I mean, do we have it better than everybody else? Are we all playing in the same pool here?
Well, let me tell you, Sarah. This weekend, I was at the airport flying out to Honolulu for a speaking engagement. So there you go. Right there, I am not an average person.
That's right.
Most people, here I am complaining about flying to Honolulu. I'm a jerk.
Yes.
But the flight was delayed. It was delayed an hour and a half, and these things happen. In fact, there was really bad weather. I understood going to the airport why it was going to be delayed, but they would not give us any information about the delays. And when they did come on and give us information, it was with a real, I don't know why we need to tell you this sort of tone.
Really?
And people were just haughty and pushing around. And I understand it probably been a really long day with lots of delays, and they were tired of hearing the same questions over and over again. But it was just bitchy. Not a single apology. We were rushed onto the plane, and when we got on the plane, there was just a lot of nagging about hurry up and put your stuff in the bins and sit down. And then when they read the safety announcement, they were like, it was like being in class. I would like everyone to put down your magazines and stop your conversations and listen.
Wow.
I was like, okay, we're adults here. And that's when I posted, United Airlines obviously does not create an environment in which they encourage their employees to give a damn. Because it just, I understood.
I saw that tweet. I didn't know what the context was.
I understood why these employees were frustrated. I got it. I am empathetic to that. But at the same time, it didn't seem like they cared about hiding it at all. And when you're in customer service, man, it sucks to have to, but that is the job, is to deal equitably with the public. And so I'm like, I blame the employer, not the employee. They have created a scenario where these folks feel like, you know what, it doesn't really matter. And I have to say, the other two members of the crew on that flight were fine. They were perfectly adequate. The crew members and the staff at the gate on the flight back was fine. But I replied United Airlines. I didn't get a single question. What happened? What do you mean? What can we do to help? Nothing like that. And frankly, that is the norm for me. If I complain about a product or a service on Twitter, I don't hear anything. The exceptions are Comcast, and that's because Comcast has made it a point to have a staff of people on Twitter. And I know they don't just help folks with large followers. I've heard of other people getting help on Twitter, and I actually get real help. Like, I've gotten real status updates that I couldn't get by calling them over Twitter. The other exception was Gillette. When I made some crack about growing the beard, they wrote back and were like, we'll send you a free razor. So that's it.
Don't grow a beard.
I think there are companies like Comcast and Verizon who are attempting to do this. And I think that story about saying a lot of them just want to get you to shut up is probably true.
Yeah.
I don't think Twitter is going to be the savior of customer service. I think it's going to be a great outlet for companies who really value customer service to provide another outlet to helping people. But Twitter itself isn't going to change companies that have bad customer service suddenly into companies that have good customer service.
Yeah, I mean, bad PR is something that companies care about. And if they have a little bad PR and it's just some random person, why should they care? It's not because they're not people with feelings, because but you just kind of have to think of it in company sense. They can only spend so much time on their own PR, and as more and more people use Twitter, the folks that are going to get what they want out of it will continue to be a small group of people, and that's just the way it goes. I too have complained about a variety of companies and never heard anything back from them. Those stories just aren't very interesting. So the stories that I tell are the ones where I actually get something out of it, like the Verizon story. Anyway, so yeah, folks, I know that you've got differing opinions on this. Tom and I both have specific stories where it's worked out for us and others where it hasn't. So let us know if you want to, if you have these kinds of stories, because last time I talked about this, I got a flood of here's why this doesn't work, or here's why this actually worked for me, and that was really helpful. Quick reminder that you can write us at the social hour at twit.tv. And by the way, if you've missed any of our shows, we're on episode 6 now. If you've missed any of our shows up until this point, you can go to twit.tv/TSH. TSH is our little, well, it's not really an acronym because you don't say, but TSH is our URL. And a quick reminder that we're not recording the show live at the normal time today because it's kind of a weird week. We've had a few weird weeks lately, but we'll get back into the regular schedule soon. But it's Mondays, 11 a.m. Pacific, and that's 2 p.m. Eastern at live.twit.tv if you want to join us live on the show on the social hour.
There's a Russian character for TSH.
It is?
It's like a W with a little tail.
And it's pronounced Z?
It's pronounced sh.
Okay, I'll take it. Good. Before we get into our spotlight of the week, I wanted to quickly thank Carbonite for being a sponsor of the social hour. Carbonite is the way to back up your very, very important files that you care about, files that you can't lose, files that might contain your deepest, darkest secrets. If you're not familiar with Carbonite, it is so easy to use. What you do is you just install it. You back up your files. And by the way, once you have a Carbonite account, you can just back up in the background as long as you're connected to the internet. It's not even something that you have to think about. And
the nice thing is you can even set a priority status. So if you're worried about it sucking up bandwidth while you're trying to do something else, it'll monitor for that and say, oh, everything's busy. I'm going to hold off.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I mean, this is really the idea of backing up your data. People back up data in many ways. You can have an external hard drive. You can, I mean, there's so many ways to do this. But if you've just got that Carbonite in the cloud backup, you can really rest assured that it's safe. It's away from any physical location. So all of that, the hard drive failures and lost files, if you just can't remember where you put that one file, you know that you already have another copy of it at Carbonite. And by the way, Carbonite works really well with remote access too. I mean, if you're not at your computer, you've backed up your files, you can connect to the internet from a remote computer, your iPhone or your Android phone, BlackBerry as well. And this works with Windows and Mac too. So it's really, really, really a good thing to do for your own peace of mind. It's unlimited backup for your PC or Mac, $59 a year. And if you think of that in terms of what you'd be spending a day, it's 16 cents. 16 cents a day to
and
not
I have
to worry.
217 gigabytes backed up right now.
Do you really?
For 16 cents a day.
Wow. That's pretty good. It's pretty good, Tom. So, all right. Thanks so much to Carbonite for sponsoring our show today. We really, really love them. Back up your data, people, because if you don't, you just don't want the alternative. Our special code at Carbonite.com is Social Hour. We thank them so much for their support. Go to Carbonite.com and let them know Social Hour sent you. Thanks, Carbonite. All right, so Tom, I don't know really how I feel about this next service. It is our spotlight, and I'm going into this cautiously because I know that location and the idea that people can find you physically at places that you check into is a delicate subject for a lot of folks. This next service is called Nock Nock, and it's spelled without the K, basically. It's also spelled differently than a bar called Nock Nock in the Lower Haight.
Oh, it's spelled with the K.
Well, it's spelled with one K, not...
Oh, with the K. There's no K at the beginning.
You're right,
Gotcha.
yes. One K, not two. So it's not the Nock Nock joke. It's nock-nock.com is the URL. So here's how Nock Nock works. And it took me a minute to figure it out. They've got an instructional video if you just go to the homepage. But I still had to kind of play around with it a little bit. So what you have to do is... First of all, this is only active right now in New York, San Francisco, Hong Kong, and Bangkok. And I've noticed that in San Francisco, it has a long way to go. So I have to...
So you can use Nock Nock in Bangkok.
That's right. Knock
right.
Knock, Bangkok, and go with the jokes. So in San Francisco, we've got a few neighborhoods. So if I were to click on Haight-Ashbury, for example, by the way, when you first load up Nock Nock, in order to even get to this point, you have to log in with your Foursquare credentials. So this works with Foursquare. If you're not a Foursquare user, not going to be any fun. At this point, I've got some places that that people have populated. Nikki's, Finnegan's Wake, Danny Coyle's, a lot of stuff.
Finnegan's Wake. It's always busy there. It's always packed. I don't want to go there. It's always crowded.
Well, right now there's only one person that's checked into Finnegan's Wake, and
okay, here's the problem with Nock Nock, right? So that's the idea is, oh, there's only one person checked in, so I know Finnegan's Wake isn't packed.
Right.
But what if that just means he's the only person who checked in and it's still full of 300 people?
Yeah, or the only person who is cool with public Foursquare notifications. Right. Because, by the way, this is the sort of service that works really well with people who have not turned on the utmost in privacy on Foursquare. Foursquare is not about letting crazy people that you don't want to know where you are. It's up to you. So these are people who have public location turned on. I'm one of those people. I don't really know why. I guess I'm just not scared or something. But here's where Nock Nock is kind of weird, is that they are only including venues that are fun, like nightclubs, bars, or maybe lively restaurants where there's dancing, that sort of thing. So it's very much supposed to be where are all the people at for the party. Now, I already have a problem with that because who's to say what I want to do when I'm at a party? I don't want to go to Delirium for a party. I definitely don't want to go to Majul. I don't even like that place. Zeitgeist I'd be into. I'd be interested in who's at Zeitgeist, but just one girl and I don't know her. So these aren't even friends of mine. What you do is if you want to know a little bit more about a person, and by the way, I'm not going to go into anyone's profile because I don't know them, and so I don't want to, publicly talk about them.
Hey, they made it public.
They did. All right, so fine. 42 minutes ago at Zeitgeist, a lovely lady with some tattoos and a cute hairdo checked in at Zeitgeist. She's on Foursquare. I could click Foursquare and get more information about her via her Foursquare profile. If you've set up Twitter and Facebook on Foursquare as well, which you can do, those icons would show up as well. So, I clicked around in Nock Nock a little bit earlier, and there's a lot of information that you can find out about people. If they've linked their Facebook profile, for example, to Foursquare, and they haven't turned on certain privacy settings in Foursquare, now I know a lot about them via Nock Nock, and if we have similar friends and Facebook's telling me that, I don't know. This is the sort of thing, Tom, where on one hand you go, it's one of these services that's cool because they can, but at the same time, I feel as though so many people still just don't quite understand the repercussions of geolocating yourself and letting everyone know that these services seem very invasive.
I don't feel that way. I think for the most part, people on Foursquare, they want to check in, they want to be public. That's their choice, and I think we, because, and I don't mean we're old, but we're not like in our teens and 20s.
Right.
We come from a different background of a lot of privacy just being natural, and so we assume it should continue. I think a lot of people are growing up with the idea of like, yeah, my location is public. Of course it is. That's just the way the world works. So
Yeah.
I hesitate to jump and call this stuff scary. To me, it's more useless. Like, why do I need this? It's not giving me good information. If I go onto Foursquare, my app, I can actually go and see the same information. I could just do a search on a place and it'll tell me who's there.
Right.
So what do I need Nock Nock for exactly? Maybe I'm missing it. Maybe there's some key here. Maybe it's just the presentation that's better. Sometimes that's all it takes, but I'm not at first glance seeing why I would use this over Foursquare itself.
Yeah, me either. I think the presentation is the key. That Foursquare is not. I mean, the web interface is okay. I wouldn't call it anything exciting. You look at Nock Nock and you see everybody's faces. You can hover over their information. So it's the same information. You're absolutely right. Nock Nock is obviously not scraping anything that Foursquare doesn't want you to know about, but it's presented in a different way. You've got sort of these pictures and tattooed men. I mean, he's at Brooklyn Bowl. I'm gonna get a flight to New York right now.
Excellent.
So on and so forth. Yeah, I mean, it's free. I don't know. I'm mixed on stuff like this. I do have friends who are really anti this kind of thing because it's very clear to them that many of these people, if they knew that we were looking at them, would be like, oh God, no, I need to fix my settings. So yeah, there's some. There's the argument that, hey, you're using Foursquare, you should read the manual. And
RTFM.
Right, RTFM. So Nock Nock, it's available to you if you're a Foursquare user. If you want to try it out, let us know. If if you're on my side of the fence, if you're on Tom's. I mean, I'm a public person. I've got no problem with it. I kind of feel like it's part of the job. It's kind of part of the fun. But I understand that it can be weird for other people. All right, we get a lot of really good feedback from you guys. I'm always telling you that because I just want you to know that we really appreciate it, and we can't always read all of your feedback. We can't always respond to all of your feedback, but we do always read it. But every once in a while, we do get some constructive criticism. The latest was more of a rant. So I thought, well, we're not just going to be all roses and puppies and unicorns on the show. He or she did not leave their name, but I will go ahead and read the email anyway. Amber and Sarah and Tom. First, let me say I like your show. It's entertaining, but totally pointless. I can't help but be amazed by you guys and how you're in your own little world in the San Francisco area where you think everything can be solved on the internet. I don't think there's any place else that has the same social issues as you do there. It was interesting hearing how Sarah solved a customer service issue by tweeting about it, but that wouldn't work for any place else. If I tweet about something, no one will care. No one will ever see it. I heard once that most tweets go unread, and I'm sure nobody cares what I say anyway because I don't have a radio show and I don't work in Silicon Valley. In fact, I joined Friendster back in the day, but I never had a single friend because everyone on there was in San Francisco. Heck, I can't even get broadband at my house. I've heard that two-thirds of the country can't get broadband either in order to use Netflix or any of that streaming stuff you're always talking about. It'd be nice if you talked about something that applies to the rest of the world sometime. Just a suggestion.
Love the show.
I know. I like how it was like, I like the show, and here's why I don't like it. So,
let me take a stab at responding to this because I totally understand the impulse of being like, look, I'm not inside the Beltway. I'm not in the Silicon Valley bubble, so I don't have 100 people lining up to be my friend, and I'm not going to have people worried about what's going to be happening on the social hour if I don't help out Sarah Lane. And it's easy to think that there's probably a kernel of truth to it, but the fact of the matter is people are looking on Twitter. They're just searching. They don't care how many followers you are. They want to expunge anything bad about their brand name, but not every company is like that. So it doesn't matter if you've posted something before and not gotten a response from anyone. It probably is because you weren't posting about one of those companies that really cares about this stuff. And the other thing is you got to be social to get social back. Mm-hmm. I've had that same experience where I've joined social networks and I haven't gotten any friends or any connections because I don't try. And I actually do know people in San Francisco and could make friends. But I have several of these things where I'm like, I signed up. I don't tell anybody I signed up. I don't reach out. I don't go to other people's threads and comment. I don't participate. And, of course, you're not going to be part of that. So maybe that's just not maybe these kinds of things like Friendster just are your thing. And 2/3 of the country can't get broadband. That is not true.
That's not true.
There is a large portion of the country that can't get broadband. There is a larger, maybe the 2/3 number is more people who can't get extra fast broadband. Things like 50 megabits per second. And that sort of thing is true. And we do have a broadband. It's exaggerating the case here.
Yeah, I really do. The Social Hour is one of those shows where I really want to take into consideration the fact that we are very much in a little bubble unless we try really hard not to be in the Silicon Valley. That applies to a lot of urban areas where there's a lot of high tech and startup life going on. And San Francisco's not the only city, but it's definitely one of the biggest. So I really do. I read things like this, and I know. I empathize with this feeling of like, gosh, it's just this like echo chamber and no one's listening and it's not fun. And you have to be in San Francisco to have a good time. Well, even though as Tom said, it's like you kind of just got to participate and get the hang of it. Amber doesn't live in San Francisco. She's the co-host. She lives in Toronto. She lives in Canada. It's a whole other country. Tom is sitting at his house right now in San Rafael, but he could be anywhere. He could be on Skype anywhere in the world, and we could be doing the show. We have we do shows on the TWiT network all week long with people who are overseas and in different time zones and all sorts of good stuff like that. So the whole idea of the show is truly centered around the idea that many of us have access to all the same tools. We live in different geographical locations, and we can link up with each other. We can share things. We can have a good time. We can get information together. Much of it is real time. New tools that we never had before. So in a way, it's like everything that you're complaining about is just not true. But at the same time, I do see both sides. I do see both sides of the story. And, if you ever feel like we're going on and kind of forgetting that someone in a small town is not going to be able to do what I'm describing, hey, call me out on it. No problem at all. But we really aim to be a global show. Mm-hmm.
I've seen the net from both sides now.
Have you?
From up and down.
Yeah.
And still, somehow. After all of my responses to his criticisms or hers, it's hard to be social when we don't even know who you are. But it's a fair point that I work hard to try to avoid myself, which is getting caught in the bubble and saying things are this way because that's how everybody in San Francisco does things. But I think that's true of any place. In any place, you're going to, you may be able to say in your place, nobody uses the internet because nobody does in your area. It's going to be different in different places. And I think that's a very good thing for us to keep in mind.
Absolutely. All right. Before we get into some of our other viewer feedback, you guys were pretty active this week, and I thank you for that. Just wanted to thank Netflix for being our second sponsor on the show today. Netflix, where more than 2/3 of America can stream movies or get DVDs sent to their homes. Netflix is awesome. If you're not already a Netflix user, boy, will you enjoy it. Again, you can get instant streamed movies to your PC or your Mac, or a Netflix-ready device like an Xbox or a PS3 or a Nintendo Wii, or even just a Netflix-enabled TV. I've got one. It's my Sony Bravia. Works like a dream. Or if you prefer DVDs, Blu-ray DVDs are included, some titles. You can get DVDs sent in the mail in one business day. The way Netflix works is you've got this online queue, and you just pretty much add movies or TV shows. They have a lot of TV series. You can start at the beginning of 24. If you've never seen that before, go to town, have a good time, watch it on Netflix. You can take up a few weekends perhaps. And once you've got your queue set up, you just start watching movies. There's no late fees. When you're done with a movie, then you can watch another one. It works out really well. And if you want to sign up for a free trial membership, that's, 14 days that they get for free?
14-day free trial. You could be watching Raging Bull tonight.
Ooh, Raging Bull. Wow, I haven't seen Raging Bull since, gosh, I was a kid. What year did that come out? Early 80s, right?
1980.
1980. Yes, I was 4. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure my parents didn't let me watch Raging Bull until
I haven't
later.
seen that. That was 4.
I probably saw it. Yeah, I probably rented it from a video store, but I was still pretty young. Yeah, I mean, you can sign up for a free 14-day trial. Netflix is, I always say this, it's one of those services where if you don't have it, maybe you don't know what you're missing, but once you do, you realize this is the way to watch movies and TV shows. It is just awesome. I love streaming Netflix. It is great. And we thank them so much for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. Our special code, so that the Netflix folks know that TWiT sent you, is netflix.com/TWiT. That's netflix.com/TWIT. Thank you to Netflix. All right, Tom. So we're going to go into a little bit of viewer feedback now. The first email comes from Guy in Princeton, New Jersey.
Not just some guy.
No,
but
his name is
the
Guy. Yeah, I think his
Princeton,
name's Guy.
New Jersey. Yeah.
You could make it up. You could just
Or
tell me
perhaps
that your
Guy.
name is something else. Maybe it's Guy. Guy from Princeton, New Jersey says, "Hey, Sarah and Amber. It's not that it's the first story to be spread by Twitter, but the news of bin Laden's death seems to be the first story that I initially learned about on Twitter." Many other people are saying the same thing, Guy. He says, "Thanks to your tweets, actually. What I found interesting, though, is that neither of you," he's talking about Amber and I, "actually specified which story you were tweeting about. Perhaps it's because I'm not following any news sources like the BBC, for example. But I still had to go on the web to find out what was happening, what you guys were referencing. I'm curious as to your thoughts whether Twitter can really break a story. So ready for that, especially when the person breaking the story might be someone without thousands of followers, or if it really only works as a means for commenting on a story, which everybody's familiar with already." Yeah, I mean, Guy's right. I was a little bit, I didn't want to, I didn't want to tweet anything last night that was going to be taken the wrong way. I felt that the whole thing was kind of a powerful moment. So
Didn't stop me.
Well, didn't stop a lot of people. And, that was just, I was just kind of like, I need to just be quiet and kind of absorb this information. I did tweet about how CNN, because it was interesting to me at the time that everyone else was saying, bin Laden's dead, this is going to be the news, this is what Obama's going to talk about. And CNN, for a good half hour that I was watching their live coverage, were just congratulating themselves on not speculating like the other news outlets were speculating. And I mean, they went on and on about it. And Wolf Blitzer was just saying, "I just want to commend ourselves on not speculating."
I just want to pat ourselves on the back. I want to talk about how awesome we are.
He really said
you know
that.
what? I'm going to tell you what's on Twitter, because you couldn't go to Twitter and look at it yourself. So let me read some of those tweets.
Yeah, so I tweeted about that. I tweeted, "Hey, CNN is they just keep repeating that they're not going to say it, so I'm going to switch over to MSNBC." And I think Amber tweeted, "Wow," which a lot of people did, and everyone who already knew what that was in reference to kind of went, "Yeah, wow." Well, Guy was like, "What are they talking about?" So he figured it out in other ways. I think, Tom, I don't know where you stand on the side of it, but I think it really just depends on, again, who you follow. That's a simple answer.
I think it's a false premise that people set up to have a conversation, to say that Twitter is going to break news, or Twitter will replace journalism, or Twitter is the new journalism. Just like radio didn't get rid of newspapers, television didn't get rid of radio. All Twitter is a new way of posting information and sharing it, and it's one more tool. I think Andy Carvin is a fantastic example of what you can do with Twitter, but it doesn't obviate the need for a longer form story that you can read and see more details about. It doesn't change the fact that you want to see video of things, and you want to hear expert analysis as video is being shown, describing it, say in an earthquake situation or a shooting or something like that. It's only one way of getting information, and for certain kinds of information it's perfect, but not for every single piece of information. So it's kind of false to say like, oh, can Twitter break news or not? In some cases, yes. In a lot of cases, no. It's just another slice of the story there. For instance, when I heard about what happened to bin Laden, I overheard a guy in the row in front of me on the plane after it landed, passing on what ended up being misinformation. But what I did was went on my phone and looked it up on BBC and got the full story. To me, that's kind of what Twitter is. Twitter is the guy saying 140 characters worth of stuff that then you can go and find out more about.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's what you make of it. It is a means to communicate. It is not the communication tool. I mean, I know a lot of folks use lists. I mean, that might be something that you could get something out of. Robert Scoble, for example, has a great legendary tech news people list. A lot of people are following it. A lot of people are on it, and it's a good way to get advice onto who to follow, who you trust. Tom and I probably follow a lot of the same people, and then a lot of different people, and that's sort of the beauty of it, is everyone is having slightly different experience because of the people that you're allowing into your stream. So,
and it's what you're looking at the time. If you're listening to radio, radio's where you're going to hear about it. If you're watching TV, TV's where you're going to hear about it. If you're looking at Twitter, Twitter's where you're going to hear about it. Some things will break on Twitter. Some things will be a guy happens to be on the tarmac after the plane landed that had a hole in it and takes a picture, and that posts on Twitter, and that's how everyone finds out about it. Some things, like the guy who accidentally live blogged, are going to originate on Twitter. People aren't going to figure him out until later, but Twitter is the source of the story. Other things are just, you know what? I heard about it on Twitter, but I had to go to the link, which had the real breaking news on it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like I knew what was coming on Twitter, and I turned on my TV eventually because I wanted to watch Obama on my big screen, rather than my little laptop screen. It's like it's whatever you want to make of it. The experience is yours to make. And yeah, I mean, if you were following, I think Keith Urban, not the country singer, but a different Keith Urban. There's an H in the Urban was the first tweet that I could find that had actually referenced it's Bin Laden. That's the news. But I mean, there's probably somebody else.
He was a former Bush administration official, right?
Yeah. I was like, the country singer, really? That can't be right. No. It's
different
totally different Keith Urban. But yeah, and I'm sure somebody else heard from. There are millions of people that everyone heard this news from. So it's a spreader. It's a disseminator of information. All right, we've got a voicemail from Anonymous in Pennsylvania, who's got some tips for people who want to manage Facebook a little bit better. And if you're like me, you have too many friends, and you need this advice.
Hello, Social Hour Podcast. You're asking for tips on social networking. Here's the best one I came up with. I just got back onto Facebook a few days ago, actually, and I am all about privacy. So I set up the following 4 groups for all of my friends: close friends, casual acquaintances, family, and coworkers. And I set it up so that each of my status updates, everything with my wall pictures, is specific to one or more of those groups. So now I can post something on the wall, and I can have my close friends see, but not my casual acquaintances, certainly not my family, and not my coworkers. Or I can put something really nice and public out there and let everyone see it. So I found that really helps me, and I'm sure it's going to avoid a lot of weird questions when I get into work and when I'm hanging around my family. So I hope everyone else can enjoy that same
technique, I guess, is probably how he was going to. Yeah, I think this is a really, really, really good thing to do. Some of us have, I mean, coworkers and friends, those lines can be blurred as, what makes an acquaintance become a friend. Again, it's kind of a personal experience, but I think being able to section friend groups into specific friend groups, especially if there's like a family, or maybe you work at a company where that life is very separate than the life, once you punch out at 5 p.m. on Friday and go party. Tom, do you do friend lists that are everyone's in a specific category?
I don't anymore. I used to when I pretty much friended anybody on Facebook. When I signed up for Facebook, it was still in the network phase, right? You could only be a member if you were part of a network. And so I took all comers. I said, hey, I don't care. I'll friend anybody. Then as Facebook started to be used more and more as a repository for personal information and as a tool for things, I realized that's not the right way to use it. They're pushing me away from that because they're assuming that all these people are my real friends, not just social friends from the internet. So I actually went through the process of unfriending a bunch of people and explaining what I was doing, moving them over to a Facebook page that I had created, and then limiting Facebook to just people I know. And when I did that, I didn't really find the need for a separation between different kinds of friends groups. But I can see if your work life and your home life are very different, that if they don't blend together. I mean, my wife is Leo's producer, so they're pretty blended for me. But that may not be true for some. I could see where that would be a useful thing to do.
Yeah, you know, I did the exact same thing that you did back in the day, where I went, you know what, Facebook is not fun for me with too many friends. I made the mistake of just adding anybody who wanted to be my friend, and it became a noisy place that I never wanted to go to because I just couldn't weed through the information. So I did a lot where I explained that I was creating a page, moved over a lot of people successfully. But what I still have the issue of is I've got my, I say my internet friends. Many of them are also my real life friends, but I've got my life now, and those people that are, you know, in my social circle that doesn't represent, you know, my high school friends. And I've got a lot of high school friends that are on Facebook, as many of you do. So it's actually very, very helpful for me. I've got, you know, I actually just created this buddy list if anyone was watching. But I've got my buddies, and then I've got a separate list for all my people from back home. Sebastopol, that's the town I grew up in. And these are folks.
In Russia.
Yeah, if only. Well, that's Sevastopol, so it's a little bit different. These are all folks that, you know, are important to me. You know, I care about them. None of them are on any of my social networks, or very few of them are anyway. And they're separate in almost every way, but I care about them, and I don't want them to get lost in the shuffle, because it's just easy to get lost in the shuffle of Facebook, even if you only have, I think I'm at like 300 and something friends, which that's too many for me to handle, even though that's so much fewer than so many other people juggle. This is very helpful for me. So if you, and like our caller said, you can choose to share an update or a funny link or a video with certain lists. So you can share it with everybody. I could share some, I don't know, maybe I could encode some video. I used to walk around high school with a video camera all the time. I was that kid, and share some video that, you know, all the Sebastopol people would really get a kick out of. But I don't necessarily want to share it with all of my current friends, because maybe it's embarrassing or I look stupid or something like that. So it's really worth going into the Facebook settings and seeing what your options are as far as managing friends, because it really is supposed to be, you know, a helpful service. It helps all of us. All right, if you wanted to give us a call like Anonymous did. Hi, Anonymous. That was great. Thanks for giving us that tip. We love it. Please call us. The number is 2626-SOCIAL. We had that little jingle, Tom. I don't think you heard it because you weren't on the show that day, but it was like 2626-SOCIAL.
What happened to it?
Well, I just have to load it up before the show.
Oh.
I never remember.
Well, you just sang it. That's good enough.
Yeah, and of course you can always write us if you don't want to call and you don't want to leave a video. By the way, if you do want to leave a video, I don't think we've played any videos on the social hour yet, and we'd love to see your beautiful face. If you just want to upload a video, you can upload it to YouTube or Vimeo or wherever, anywhere that you can send us a link. You know, it's not private or whatever, that we can play it on the show. We'd love to see you. But if you just want to write us, you don't want to be seen or heard, that's cool. The social hour at twit.tv is our email address as well. All right, Tom, before we let you go off to do your next podcast, because apparently you just podcast all night.
That's pretty much it.
That's what you do. Amber and I have a section of the show that we like to call Rad or Fad. And yes, and this is just, you know, it's something that's come across our radar, and we're just not sure how we feel about it yet. This is actually Amber's suggestion, because she didn't actually wake up sick until today, poor thing. So yesterday she was you know, we were swapping links back and forth, trying to figure out what we were going to talk about. And Amber, I don't know where she finds some of this stuff, but she found mockingbirds, and the website is mbirds with a Z, so MBIRDZ.com. This is one of the weirdest sites ever, where there are a variety of Twitter accounts, not really, they're not real. They're kind of fake accounts, or tweeting as a dog, or variety that are like crowdsourced. So, for example, a little while ago, I decided to tweet as this little laser cat named Oliver Pants, who's Ollie Pants on Twitter. Totally just ate the best mouse burger with Swiss. So that was what I tweeted as Oliver Pants. And if you go to Twitter.com.
What?
Wait, hold on. Sorry.
I'm at Twitter. I'm actually at Mockingbirds using the condensed milk Twitter account. It's got an Eagle brand Borden's condensed milk can. So I wrote, I'm ashamed that I killed off pet milk.
There you go. Okay, so here's this stupid tweet that I sent through Oliver Pants the cat. I didn't do this. I don't really know what I'm doing here. It's kind of like, and you just sent, what did you sent a tweet through ma'am_in_a_can, the Eagle brand. Yeah. So here's what's weird about this is that it's like, okay, so I don't know who's behind the site, but you've got an area here where you can suggest, oh, I'd like to tweet as Mr. Buttons, and maybe they'll put together something for you. You know, there's like a fake Mr. T account type of thing. The Carlisle group, though, I was like, Carlisle group, what in the world? Obviously, it's spelled differently, and there's an underscore in the Twitter name that they're actually using, but the Carlisle group is like an investment firm, like a really, buttoned up kind of group. I can't imagine that they would be okay with this if they knew that anybody was using their name. I don't know if this is actually their logo, but I mean, it's spelled the way.
Well, there's also the Starbucks mermaid.
Yeah, Starbucks siren. Who's a mermaid logo buzzmade. I mean, it's kind of like, okay, so first of all, when we say rad or fad, I'm like, I don't even know if this is even a fad. This is more just kind of bizarre. But it's not rad because it's just a bunch of noise and kind of spammy. But it would be cool if Mockingbirds could figure out a way for me to set up a group Twitter account that you and Leo and Eileen and everybody else at TWiT could just sort of dump tweets into. There are other services that do that, but I mean, if this was that kind of service, I'd be like, yeah, that's kind of cool.
I like this for fun. This is not a tool because there's, like you say, there's plenty of tools, but it's so unfiltered that it just kind of goes to crap pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, Baked Steve Jobs, you can imagine the kind of jokes that are going to be on the Baked Steve Jobs. The thing
like
is,
the one I just wrote about buttons.
Yeah, the buttons, stop them, Phil. That's funny. And then somebody responded to you, or maybe that was you. But the idea is, it's like this. It's weird. And the problem is that there's always that chance that you and I are thinking something is really, really funny. Oh boy, that funny Steve Jobs, Baked Steve Jobs that you just sent out. But if no one's following the count, then what's the point? There's no point. You know.
Yeah, and you're not going to get a very even. You're not going to get a very even consistency of funny stuff. So I would never want to follow one of these either.
I think that you could perhaps use Mockingbirds if, I don't know, they're still around in some time, and there are a bunch of fake accounts where there's a variety of ways that people like to spoof a tweet that never actually went out from a celebrity or something, where you could have a little fun with a friend who isn't paying enough attention or doesn't know how Twitter works that well. But yeah, I don't know. I'm going to go with not even a fad. Not rad. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go fad. It had hints of rad around the edges.
Yeah.
But mostly I got a bouquet of fad.
Yeah, I'm with you. Fad it is. All right, well, it is 7:09. We started just about right at 6, so we almost made an hour. It hasn't quite happened yet, but I think you and I have gotten the closest to 60 minutes of any social hour yet. Yes, thank you to you. I don't know.
Thanks to me for not having enough to say.
No, you had plenty to say. You know what it is? Amber is so nice that she kind of lets me go on and on. I keep saying, will you just shut me up? You just interrupt me.
Yeah, Sarah, shut up and tell them about the next social hour.
The next social hour will be next Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. We're gonna shoot live at the regular time next Monday, and that's when we shoot live. And a reminder that if you can't watch us live, no big deal, because like all the other shows on TWiT, social hour is new, but we do everything the same way. If you go to twit.tv/TSH, you can find all of the back episodes of our show. Watch our archives. You can download them right there. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes. However you want to digest the show, we don't care. We just want you to enjoy it. And thanks so much for all the feedback. Thanks to Tom Merritt for filling in for Amber MacArthur today. Tom, always a pleasure.
Me too.
And I guess everyone can go. What do you guys do? Sword and Laser live or no?
No, we just recorded audio and post it.
So nobody can listen in, but they can listen.
Not
to
until
Sword and Laser.
not until it's posted. Then everyone can listen in.
How if you're shooting Sword and Laser in just a few minutes? How long until it goes up?
Usually we get it up the next day. Sometimes it gets up the same evening.
Cool. All right. Well, swordandlaser.com. That's where you can find out more about what Tom and Veronica Belmont are going to be talking about. Very geeky stuff. Very geeky stuff.
Science Fiction Fantasy Book Club.
All right, well, that's it for us on the Social Hour. Thanks so much for joining us live or watching us later or anything in between. I'm Sarah Lane, and we'll see you next week.